Hi everyone, welcome back to Becoming Gwendie, the Metamorphosis. Today we're going to peel back another layer of becoming, the part where your voice gets steadier and your truth really sharpens and you stop shrinking to fit someone else's comfort. This chapter is about stepping forward and being seen for who you are and letting the world meet you exactly as who you are, not as who you used to pretend to be. So, before we begin, take a breath with me. Let your shoulders soften. In 1, 2, 3, out 1, 2, 3. Let your heart open just a little bit wider. And as always, we'll start the way we start all sacred things here, under the silvery glow of something timeless. So now, let's let the moon guide us in.
By the light of the silvery moon, I want to my honey I'll prove love to. Honeymoon, keep it shining into. Your silvery beams will bring love dreams. We'll be cuddling soon. We'll cuddle soon by the silvery moon.
Welcome back, my sweet moonlit circle. If you're new here, I'm Gwendie Bellmoon, storyteller, celestial traveler, and woman who spent years learning how to stop shrinking long before I ever learned how to be seen in this world. And I would like some feedback if you guys like that intro. I'm still working on it and figuring out YouTube and videos in particular. But let's get to it. So tonight we're actually talking about something every overweight woman knows in her bones. Something that has sculpted and hacked and carved me into the exact person that I am today. This is a truth that only some people will ever know. And that is that the hardest part about dating fat isn't the dating itself. It's really putting yourself out there. It's letting yourself be seen in a world that taught you to shrink and disappear. It's going against the grain of everything that you've tried to become, to be what other people want. And before we dive too further into this, dating as a fat person is not a niche experience. It is not for the faint of heart or the weak of mind. You have to be pretty secure in yourself just to put yourself out there. And I just want everyone to start with that foundation. I also want to remind everyone that these are based on my experiences. Everyone's experience is going to be different. These are just the lessons that I learned along the way, and I want to share with you in hopes that maybe your lessons aren't as painful or bumpy. Speaking of bumpy, my black eye is almost gone. You can see just a little remnant of it right here. I do still have a pretty nasty bruise right here and a couple on my arm, but otherwise almost healed. I do have a really lovely Jason Momoa scar right here, and I'm very proud of that. These are my first stitches, so definitely did that with some precision there. To make sure that I would remember it forever and always, my close-up and personal encounter with that garage floor. Hoping that that never happens again. So I definitely am taking those steps a little more carefully these days. But let's get back into it. So where'd we leave off? Yeah, dating as a fat woman is definitely not for the faint of heart. It's a battlefield, honestly, where humiliation and desire fight to the death. I mean, you've got to put yourself out there, otherwise no one's going to see you. But then you risk being seen. It's quite the conundrum. It's really a profoundly human experience, fat or not. Visibility, identity, desire, and really the right to take up space as who you are. So I want to open with a really simple truth. Being seen is scarier than being alone. And I think that's why people are so willing to put themselves out there, but being unseen is really the loneliest feeling in the world. So when you put yourself out there and it doesn't work out, it can be pretty tragically isolating. And, tonight we're going to break that contract of invisibility. I want everyone to feel worthy of being seen as you are now. You don't have to wait on a particular moment in time. You don't have to wait on a particular pound that you see on the scale. You are worthy of being seen as you are in this moment of time. And I would like to share with you not specific events in my dating life, although some will come out over time, I'm sure. But the general feel of my own experience with dating as a morbidly obese woman most of my life. And I'd like to share with you towards the end the healing that I experienced being loved for who I am for the first time, instead of really feeling inside like it boiled down to what I looked like. So let's breathe and let's become. I did realize also that I don't have all of my lighting on, and I don't know. I kind of like it. It's helping to keep my shiner down a little bit. So we're gonna go with it. You guys, let me know if you would prefer to have that light back on. But I want to start with. The innate desire to be small and to make yourself small before anyone ever asks you to make yourself small. And I want to start with some honesty and some raw, unfiltered information. I really learned how to shrink myself, my existence, before anyone ever told me to. As a child, later as a teenager, and as a young adult, I really internalized some rules that I had set for myself based on what I thought society wanted. And that was that thinness equaled desirability, and quietness equals safety, and compliance equals likability. And the world actually teaches overweight girls pretty early on that attention is dangerous and desire is conditional. And, when someone genuinely liked me for the first time, it didn't feel flattering, because I had been conditioned already to know that my desirability was conditional. It felt like a suspicious act that I should be weary of, that the rug was going to pull out from underneath my feet at any moment. Visibility felt like exposure, not connection, early on. And it took a lot to really get past that. And so I want people to recognize that in themselves, that you may be putting up your own set of barriers, and you really have to work through that in your shadow work, because there's a bit of a psychology behind visibility as a human. You know, dating while you're fat is not just about your body. It's about nervous system fear. It's about being visually othered and categorized. It's about expecting ridicule and letdown, attachment wounds. It's about anticipating embarrassment in moments and assuming that at the end of the day, rejection will come. It's quite sad, and not a good headspace to be in. For certain, I had put myself into some pretty disturbing mindsets, and I feel like this is not an isolated event. That I had a pretty typical dating experience, regardless of other events going on in life. So I feel like some of you are going to relate to this, and that is, that visibility is a risk, and you're risking mockery and humiliation. You're risking being compared and judged and dismissed. And this is why compliments can feel threatening initially. This is why you want to laugh off anytime someone is genuinely praising you, or God forbid someone call you beautiful. This is why dating often feels like standing under a spotlight that you didn't ask for. But I'm here to tell you, it's everyone. It's not just you. It's literally everyone. It can feel pretty isolating. It can feel like you're all alone in that. Your nervous system responding like you're in danger, because once upon a time you were. And I'm just here to tell you, literally everyone is going through the same ordeal. And you can take some solace in that. Doesn't make it feel any better, but it helps to know that you're not alone. So let's talk about the deepest wound in that, and that is the belief that love has to be earned. I'm here to tell you it does not. Have you ever heard these lies? You tell them to yourself. If I lose 20 pounds, then I'll deserve love. I need to be perfect to be chosen. I'd better be grateful for anyone who wants me at this size. How could anyone love me like this? This is called conditional worth, and most of us are putting it on ourselves. It's not even from a potential partner or an actual partner. We're putting these types of conditions on ourselves. It's a wound that planted in childhood. It was watered and cultivated by culture and reinforced by every man who treated you like you were lucky to be there. So, fat kids become adults who apologize for their existence, and I don't want that for you. You're done apologizing for your existence. And there's a sense of violence in being erased and allowing yourself to shrink down based on what you assume is other people's conditional settings upon you, when in reality it's your own conditional worth and how you view yourself. But That's not to say that culture and people that we may have been interested in did not also play a part. It's up to us individually really to mitigate our own experience and our own emotions, but I can assure you that every fat woman who has put themselves out there in the dating scene knows at least a couple of these moments. The man who flirts privately but won't be seen with you publicly. There's a lot of them. They're out there. The "you'd be so pretty if" comments, usually coming from some very well-meaning hearts and people who genuinely love but don't understand. The people who treat dating like it's a secret. And let me tell you, that's a problem for people regardless of their weight. That I think that is just a new dating realization that people are coming to, that it's kind of a hookup scene, and it's we really got to bring our standards back into dating. But for fat women, there's a couple of other hidden surprises around some people. You can actually be fetishized instead of loved. There's a whole scene of men who see your body not as a person to have a relationship with, but as something physical to worship. And there's a whole broken psychology behind that, but that is something that fat women have to navigate in the dating scene. Is this a legitimate relationship, or is this someone getting their rocks off because they're feeding me a cake? It exists, and if you haven't experienced that, please prepare yourself for that so that you know what the signs are. And then the feeling of being tolerated instead of chosen. So, these feelings aren't necessarily internal insecurities. They are pattern recognition, and they are how some relationships can end. It's a hidden type of violence when you are teased with a relationship but not actually offered one, because your existence is being erased in that moment, and you are the only person who can get yourself out of that situation. No one else is going to pipe up and go, what I think is happening here is that you might be being used in this particular situation, and it doesn't appear that what you think is going to happen in this relationship ever will. People aren't going to say the quiet part out loud to you. It's up to you to recognize those patterns, and it's up to you to start feeling more of an awakening in your own self-presence. You can tell yourself, stand in a mirror and tell yourself, I am not a secret. I am not a consolation prize. I am not an afterthought. Jesus, I didn't realize this was going to be so hard. To really go over, but I've experienced a lot of these things, and I just want to share them with you to make sure that you're aware of not only what the world can potentially throw at you, but what you're doing, the damage that you're doing to yourself. Because there are those poor situations, there are those bad situations, but what they do is they make fat women date like surgeons. I mean, we are so hyper vigilant for any red flags, just ready to pounce ready to end something before it even gets off the ground, because we just know that's how it's going to end. So a lot of us will take action first and maybe self-sabotage, but there's a lot of overreading every signal, pre-rejecting ourselves in some situations because we want to be the one to pull that rug if somebody's going to pull a rug. And, accepting crumbs and calling it a connection. We do that sometimes too. We're always over functioning, over giving, over apologizing. And we can tend to take on all of the emotional labor in a relationship because we're taught that our presence alone was either too much or not enough. And, lovers can't bloom where they don't feel like they're worthy. So we go above and beyond in relationships and give more of ourselves than we ever receive from certain other individuals. And I'm here to tell you that you deserve return love. You deserve reciprocal love, and you deserve it in whatever form you're giving it and whatever form you need it back. There's a bit of a rage in me when I see people underestimated in relationships in that manner. There's just a specific kind of fire that lights up inside of me because, I've also spent years being underestimated as a partner. And, it's not bitterness. It's just truth awakening. It's just this feeling of what was I doing sitting in that, boiling pan, and the rage, it just heats up in your chest, and you deserve more in those moments. You deserve to be heard and to be loved. That is resurrection. That's not anger. That's you remembering who you are. So this is probably a bit of a therapy session for me. So we'll go with it. Therapy is expensive. YouTube is cheap. So, some of the projections that the fat girl in the group can have, because let me tell you, there weren't many where I'm from. and growing up, of course, there's far more overweight and obese people nowadays than there ever were. And we're linking that really to the food industry, and we've all kind of been duped by our own government and in things that are more shelf-stable versus things that are actually nutritious. And so everybody's making their bucks while the American average American person is 3 times the size they need to be, and more malnourished than ever in our history. And so it's kind of it's a gross over analysis of the situation, and maybe one day we'll tackle that. But the fat girl has classically kind of been projected as the funny friend. I mean, there's a reason I'm here on YouTube. Although I did spend much of my childhood as a wallflower, the people who knew me knew that I was a big ham and that I loved nothing more than to make the room laugh. But that was far and few between, because I only did that in the sanctity of the friend groups that I knew would never betray my trust. And anyone else saw wallflower. So, and the fat girl projections continue. They tend to be the grateful dater, the one who dotes on whoever will date them. The background character, oh, you're so brave for existing and wearing that dress type of a narrative. But let me be clear, being fat does not make you brave. Being human does. And you get to have standards. And that's what this is about. I want everyone to raise your standards, because you deserve returned love. That here's the pivot. Here's where we're gonna turn all this around. You're allowed to find yourself desirable first, and that is what I always preach. You have to love yourself first. Softness is not a flaw. Sensuality is not forbidden. Your body is not a problem to solve. Health is another story, and we'll talk about that another day. But what you need to do is look at yourself from head to toe in the mirror, and you need to say, I am allowed to be wanted. I am allowed to want, because you absolutely are. Now, how does that feel to someone who's always tried to not be seen and always tried to look away? There's nothing to see here. There's a difference between being seen and being watched, and I want you to understand the difference in those two energies. So being watched, what you're feeling when you're feeling observed and scrutinized, that is the projection that you're putting on other people. That is what you think other people are thinking in their head, that they are judging you, they are manipulating you, they are not giving you what you deserve. You're putting that in your head. So you need to look at this as you're being seen. You're being recognized for who you are. Being seen and being watched are two different things, two different energies. Most women confuse attention for love because they've never experienced being truly witnessed by another human being. Being watched is an objectification. That is someone who is interested in your body or whatever you're lacking for their list of needs. Being seen is intimacy. That is someone loving you regardless of the package that you come in. And you need to learn the difference. It will save your heart. So, desirability really, let's call it what it is. Fat phobia does exist, and it can be taught. It is not a natural state of being to be fat phobic. But culture ranks bodies, and our marketing and media haven't necessarily caught up with the American average body. We do have the body positivity movement. I have opinions on obesity hitching a ride on that movement. We'll talk about that another day. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to be positive about how you look. I'm saying that we don't want to link that to health, because health at any size is what I disagree with. But, society itself has really internalized skinniness as still an ultimate form of being. And I just want to say that does not include pleasure, sensuality, the right to be chosen publicly and not secretly. And I just want to relay that to all of you, because I can tell that there are some unspoken rules that, that fat girls never agreed to, but they're there. We've got the men who hide you. We've talked about this. We've got the men who hide you. You sure are pretty for a big girl. You have such a beautiful face. Fetish versus, saviors. There's even the savior who's going to help get you through an exercise program, and wouldn't you be healthier if we did this or that or the other, or I'll date you but only if you come to the gym with me every day. Those kind of situations. Late night only invitations, something to be said for a 2 a.m. booty call. Is that all you are? And body-based filtering, again, doing it to yourself. Are you constantly checking pictures before they go out? Are you constantly cropping and molding yourself into what you would like to be versus who you actually are? So we're going to combat these rules, and this is what we tend to do as overweight girlies. We are like, we're going to fight it. We're going to fight this. And, we do this by being the chill girl, being the caretaker, being the comedian, being the therapist for everyone, offering some service to your friends to make sure that your quality, your value isn't harmed by your lack of whatever you feel is in your appearance. And you may even bring to the table a low maintenance fantasy to try and hook a guy. It's all because we think we need to earn that attention. We think we need to earn that comfort. And your nervous system cannot thrive under performance. We've talked about that before. You can only thrive under authenticity. So when you're threatened by your own body, you can't move forward. You can't grow. You have to accept who you are. You have to love who you are before you can move forward. Otherwise, you've got your nervous system all out of whack. And what happens from our own point of view and our nervous system is that, when you're constantly on guard like that, there are things that are happening inside your psyche, inside your mind, and you've got shame dysregulating your body. You've got the freeze and fawn responses, the fight and flight, and that's got your adrenaline going and your cortisol pumping, and your hypervigilance can feel like intuition when it's really just making up stories in your head. And rejection from past relationships starts to creep into your mind, and you go, oh, this is going to happen again. This is going to happen the same way it did with this one or that one. And through all of that, your sense of judgment on other people's character can be skewed. Unavailable men start to feel safer because expectations are low. It's not going to go anywhere because he's unavailable. He's distant. He's detached. He's already said he doesn't want a relationship. Fantastic. You've already been hit with the blow before it comes in some other form that's more painful. So I want you to also think about that. But, what happens when you decide to be seen? You're going for these moments and you decide this is it. I'm going to put myself out there. When we talk about reclaiming pleasure, we're talking about something far deeper than sex and desire or physical touch. We're talking about reclaiming the right to live inside your own body without apology. For so many women, especially for overweight women, pleasure becomes something we postpone until we become the after version of whatever our dream selves is. sensuality becomes something that we hide until we believe we're allowed to have it. And if you're with the wrong person, they aren't going to help you find it. Being chosen publicly becomes something that we hope for quietly, because we've been conditioned to accept crumbs as meals. And I know that that is a painful viewpoint, and it's not everyone's viewpoint, but it is what I experienced. So this is the turning point. This is where you can stop performing. You stop apologizing for how your silhouette looks in the dark. You stop dimming the lights. You start turning the lights on, and you stop choosing crumbs. You stop shrinking to be palatable. You know, you stop telling people that you're an acquired taste. You're not. You are a fine wine. And when you finally allow yourself to be touched without bracing for the impact, that's the moment that you decide to live instead of hide. You decide to love instead of burying yourself in some impossible, perfect version of yourself. And that's when the softness comes, or at least for me, it did. You know, the lovers rise here in the moonlit circle, and I want everyone to know that coming into your softness is not weakness. It's not rebellion. It's receiving instead of over giving. It's being adored without auditioning. It's choosing slow love instead of adrenaline all the time. That's another thing we'll go over some other day, is what happens when you're used to, you know, these roller coaster toxic relationships, and then you find something that's stable, and it can actually seem a little boring at first if you don't understand what you're looking at. So we'll talk about that. But, you know, let's talk about how you begin to date from your healed self. So, you know, if you're done with self-abandonment, you're done with shrinking, you're done with being grateful for the bare minimum, and you're done being hidden or performing, you know, the chill girl or the funny girl, then you can begin to set your standards without apology, and you can begin to build your own emotional safety net. And you can start meeting partners who delight in you, adore you, choose you, and continue to choose you, because you're not auditioning, you're not playing a part, you're trying to find a life partner. So your no's and your must-haves are holy, and you need to stop over accommodating for mediocre. Boundaries are your liberation. So, this isn't just my metamorphosis. This is your metamorphosis. This is, you know, the lover saying, I am worthy of adoration as I am, not as I'm becoming, because you're still becoming. But both versions deserve love. Both versions deserve adoration, deserve what they want. So, you know, you're not preparing for love, you're entering into a phase of love. But as yourself, fully, boldly, all of you, unhidden. Reclaiming pleasure is really the quiet revolution of a woman who has finally chosen herself. And I want to bring it back to that. You have to choose yourself first. You have to learn to love yourself first. When you really begin to reconnect with your own sensuality, the way your skin feels under soft fabric, or the warmth of your own breath on a cool morning, or the sweetness of being touched with care. You remind your body in each of those moments that it deserves tenderness and love instead of scrutiny and hatred. Stop hating on yourself. Sensuality isn't performance, and it's not something that another human being has to provide for you. It's simply presence in the moment. You go into the mirror and adore yourself. It's letting yourself feel beautiful without needing permission or validation or someone's approving gaze. It's your gaze. You approve of yourself. It's remembering that your body is not the apology. It's a living, breathing source of joy. And reclaiming the right to be chosen publicly is the next natural extension of that awakening. It really means refusing to be anyone's secret, anyone's shame, anyone's private indulgence. And it's saying, if you want access to me, you show up for me in the sun, in the light, not in the shadows. And it's really releasing partners who treat you like an option. It's releasing them back into the wild. And you might find a little loneliness in that moment, but what you're doing is realigning with people who choose you with pride. And they choose your body, and they choose your brilliance, and they choose your fullness and your softness and your soul. They choose you. When a woman claims her pleasure and her sensuality and her public worth, she steps out of hiding and back into her power. Not for the world's approval, but for her own liberation. I thought maybe we could do with a little dash of ceremony, because this calls for a ceremony, a celebration. So let's actually prepare ourselves for a little mirror devotional. Oh, and I wanted to recommend these. These are called true mirrors. It's a little ta-da, boop-a-doop. But what they are is it's two mirrors that are kind of set at a 90-degree angle, so that when you look into the mirror, you're actually seeing yourself exactly as the world sees you. Because whenever you look into a mirror, you're seeing a reverse image of yourself. Like, I don't know if a lot of people realize that, but these mirrors will show you yourself as you are to everyone else, which is the reverse image of what you would normally see when you look in the mirror. I find it fascinating because you actually are completely different than what you imagine yourself, because everything is, the symmetry of your face is swapped around, and no one has a completely symmetrical face. So it is a little disturbing at first, but anyways, once you move past the unsettlingness of the true mirrors, you stand in front of a mirror and touch the part of you that you're not happy with. Is it your arms? Is it your shoulders? Is it your stomach? Touch that part with reverie. You love yourself. Glide your hands across that part of you with love. And I want you to say to yourself in the mirror, I am not hiding from love. I deserve to be adored. Because you do. You deserve to be adored and worshiped just as you are. Mr. Moon has loved me through the ages and through every shape and size imaginable, and every version of me in between. He has loved me. And I wish that kind of love for all of you who struggle to love yourselves, struggling to see yourselves for who you are, and struggling to show yourselves to the world. I hope that this gives you some sense of courage to go out and show yourself again. You deserve to be adored, so don't settle for less. You don't have to lose weight to be worthy. You don't have to shrink to be loved. You don't have to perform to date. And you do not have to earn your place in love. You are the place. You are the lover, a woman of depth, devotion, beauty, and truth. And you are worthy of slow, sacred, honest love, regardless of what package you come in. Until next time, Gwendie out.
By the light of the silvery moon, I want to swoon. To my honey I'll croon, love you. Honeymoon, keep it shining